Our opening prayer today is from the Gita itself, the 11th chapter. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, verse number 43, 40. No, 43, 43, 11:43. There is a very beautiful hymn sung by Arjuna to Sri Krishna when the Bhagavan reveals his cosmic form, Vishwarupa Darshana. Whole cosmos was in him. That's a very frightening scene. And Sri Krishna granted him special eyes. Otherwise, with the ordinary eyes, they cannot withstand that one. So Sri Krishna granted special eyes to Arjuna to be able to see the cosmic form. Then Arjuna composes hymn and chants hymn. This verse, number 43 in chapter 11, is one of those stanzas, verses. Om Pita Chilokasya Characharasya Tvamasya Pujyascha Gurur Gariyan Natvat Samobhyastvadika Kutonya Lokatrayepya Pratima Prabhava Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Lord, you are the Father of the world, of the moving and the non-moving. Greater than the greatest, you are the one object of worship. There is no one equal to you in all these worlds. Who then can excel you, O you of incomparable power? Our humble loving salutations to you. Om peace. May there be peace in our hearts. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. May there be peace everywhere in nature. Chapter 9 is a very interesting chapter. In the beginning, there are a couple of verses which challenge our intellect. We will deal with them. So we'll begin with verse number 1. This chapter 11 is called Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga. Rajavidya means the king of all knowledge. Raja means the king. Vidya means so many different branches of knowledge. Of all the branches of knowledge, this is like a king, the most important one. Raja Guhya means the royal secret. Guhya means secret. Secret means it's not hidden from anyone. Everyone can buy a book of Gita in any language and read chapter 9. It's not hidden from anyone in that way. It is hidden from those people whose minds are not prepared for this study. That's true of other branches of knowledge too. If someone has not taken the basic courses in math, pre-calculus, calculus 1, 2, 3, and all those things, such a person cannot attend a graduate class in mathematics or any subject. Any science subject, they require a lot of mathematics. Because preparation is not there. That person cannot understand what is being said. The preparation, if the mind is prepared, then we are ready to grasp what is being taught. The mind is not prepared, that knowledge is not available to us. It is not available to us. It is there, but we cannot understand it. In that sense, this knowledge of the divine, all Gita deals with the knowledge of the God, knowledge of the self, of the Lord. That knowledge is hidden from those, that means it is not accessible to those people whose minds are not prepared. What is the kind of preparation that one has to do for understanding Gita? Basic moral, spiritual disciplines are necessary. These are explained in all the books on Vedanta in different ways. One place where you can find all these disciplines required as preparation for Vedanta study is the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. In the second chapter, Patanjali has given 10 rules. These are called Yama, Niyama. Yama has 5 rules. Niyama has 5 rules. Total 10. These 10 are absolutely necessary for any progress in spiritual life, to understand any scripture. These are briefly ahimsa, non-violence. First one, non-violence, ahimsa, which includes non-violence through body, mind, and speech. Physically, we may not do violence, but mentally, emotionally, we can cause violence. Verbally, we can cause violence. That should not be done. Ahimsa. Second is satyam, truthfulness under all circumstances. Very important. Third one is asteya. Asteya means not stealing somebody's property. That means supposing somebody else's idea, if we take and present it as our idea, that also amounts to stealing. That should not be done. Not stealing anybody's property. What we earn with our own hard work, with that we should lead our lives. Ahimsa, satya, asteya. Third rule is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya means celibacy. Celibacy means morally pure life. There is a very nice book which is called, many of you know this, Meditation and Spiritual Life. That's the name of the book, Meditation and Spiritual Life. This book is the work of Swami Yatishwaranandaji, who was in Philadelphia in the 1940s. Meditation and Spiritual Life. In that book, Swami Yatishwarananda has given detailed instructions on how to observe brahmacharya, celibacy in thought, word, and deed for those who are not married and for those who are married. Detailed instructions are given. That purity of mind is necessary to grasp the subtle truths of Vedanta. Ahimsa, satyasya, brahmacharya. Fourth one is aparigraha. Aparigraha means not accepting anything, even if it is offered free, that is not really necessary. Keeping just the bare minimum necessities only. Not accumulating, hoarding things beyond the necessities. How many pairs of shoes, how many dresses, those things, we don't have to elaborate. Keeping the minimum necessary things. Why we should not keep more than the minimum necessary things? Because the more things we possess, the more attachment will come, and all the things will exert an influence on our mind. You can do this experiment. Supposing you sleep in a room which has just the bare minimum things, nothing much. We sleep in another room which has all kinds of things in it, all kinds of diamond, jewelry, and all appliances and electronics. Many, many things are there. The experience will be quite different, because those so-called inanimate objects exert a subtle influence on our minds, their very presence. You don't even have to own them. Therefore, for a spiritual life, keeping the barest minimum things and not acquiring or accepting, even if it is offered free, anything that is not really necessary. That is aparigraha. 5 things: ahimsa, satyam, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. These 5 rules are called yama. These are all necessary for a spiritual life to understand scriptures. The second 5 rules are called niyama. First of them is shaucham. Shaucham means purity. Purity both inward and outward. Mind must be pure, speech must be pure, profanity and all those things we should not use, and our actions, body, environment, everything must be pure. purity. One, Shaucham, Santosha. Santosha means contentment. We come across many of these in the Gita. Santosha comes in the Gita. It has already come in Yadrichava Santushtaha, the shloka. Remaining content with what we have and not seeking more than what we need, and contentment in the absence of greed. Greed has no end. Greed can kill a person. So these virtues are very necessary. Ahimsa, Satya, Shocha, Santosham. Third one is tapas. Tapas means austerity. Many kinds of austerities are there. Everybody cannot do everything. But three basic kinds of austerities everybody has to do. They are described in the chapter 17 of the Gita, verses 14, 15, 16. 17 chapter, verses 14, 15, 16 that describe three kinds of austerities. Austerity of the body, austerity of speech, austerity of mind. Mind must be pure and calm. Speech must be pure, truthful, free from profanities and vulgar language, and body environment must be pure and fit. So these how much? Shaucha, Santosha, Tapas, 3. Fourth one is Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means, general meaning is study of scriptures. Some scripture has to be studied every day. The choice is yours, individual. Some people study Ramayana every day. Some people study Bhagavad Gita every day. Some people study the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna every day. Some people study some other book, Guru Granth Sahib, some people study every day, like that one, your choice. But some scripture has to be studied because scriptures are words of God. So Swadhyaya. Then the fifth one is Ishvara Pranidhanam. Ishvara Pranidhanam. Dedicating, surrendering all our actions, possessions, our whole life to God, to the Lord. Dedicating everything belongs to Him. Even if we don't dedicate all, we also belong to Him. Everything belongs to Him. But the notion that they belong to me has to be given up. Ishvara Pranidhanam. These 10 disciplines are basic necessities for spiritual life. So if a person has practiced these disciplines, such a person can easily grasp what the scriptures are saying. They are the preparation required for spiritual life. And other scriptures also have given similar steps. It's a little bit different, but basically similar steps are given in other books also. So that is Rajaguhya, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya Yoga. So let us begin with the first verse. In this verse, in this chapter, there is no question from Arjuna. Usually some chapters begin with a question from Arjuna. But here Bhagavan himself starts the discourse, instruction. Verse number 1, Sri Bhagavan Vacha Idam Tute Guhyatamam Pravakshyam Yanasuyave Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam Yajnat Mokshase Shobhat. The Lord said, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Idam Jnanam. The word Jnanam comes in the second line. This knowledge which is going to explain, Idam Jnanam, Guhyatamam, very secret. Secret means, as I explained, not accessible to unprepared minds. In that way, it is secret. Idam Guhyatamam Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam. Vijnana means experience. Jnana, Vijnana. These are explained in the Gospel by Sri Ramakrishna. Jnana means knowledge. Knowledge means the Paravidya. Whole universe, nothing but Brahman. There's only one ultimate reality, pure consciousness, Satchidananda or Brahman, however we call. That is all there is in existence, and we are all that. All this world we are seeing, names and forms and people, good, bad, whole universe, It's only an appearance at a certain state of awareness. It's not always there. So that is Jagan Mithya. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. There's a famous statement. It comes in Vedanta scriptures. Brahma Satyam, Brahman alone is absolute reality. Satyam is, does not change, has no beginning, no end, and no change. Infinite, eternal. That is Satyam. Brahman is that. Jagan Mithya. Jagan means what we are seeing, this whole universe, experiencing through our mind, sense organs. This is Mithya. Mithya means not absolutely real. It's not totally absent either. It is like a dream. Some people compare this world to a dream. In a dream, when you are dreaming, it's all very real. We don't know we are dreaming. It's really happening. We laugh and cry, and we have nightmares, fear during dream, because it is so real. We don't know that we are dreaming. We don't know that it's going to end in a few minutes. So that is dream experience is very real when it is happening. But what happens to dream experience when we wake up from dream? When you look back and say, oh, it is only a dream. Nothing, nobody came, nothing happened, good or bad. So that awareness will come. So this waking state world which you are experiencing is like the dream state in which everything appears very real for some time. And then when we wake up from this waking state to our samadhi state, turiya, fourth state, then this whole world appears. It never happened. There was no such world. All these notions that I am in America, I am a Swami, this is our ashrama, this is our, everything never existed. Nobody came, nobody went. There was no world. Only Brahman remained, always remains. That awareness will come, not now in the waking state, but when we transcend the waking state and wake up into our true reality. The fourth state, they call it the fourth state. Fourth state means we are aware of the three states: waking state, and dream state, and dreamless deep sleep state, sushupti. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Three states we are aware. We go through it every day. But beyond these three states, there's another fourth state called Turiya Avastha. Turiya means fourth, where there is no object, only Brahman remains. Everything will disappear, only Brahman. And we experience that Brahman is all ourselves. We are that alone. That has to be gained from experience. I don't know what happens in Samadhi. You can never add Samadhi. It has to be gained by experience, long spiritual practice, and by the grace of God. Without grace of God, nothing happens. Our effort is a small thing only. What makes things happen is the grace of God. So that is the fourth state. So that is, knowledge of that is called jnanam, knowledge. Vijnana means actually experiencing it. Experiencing the Turiya state, actually. That is Vijnana. The difference between jnana, Vijnana, knowledge and experience is explained in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna in this way. He gives an example. Supposing somebody knows about the nutritious qualities of milk. Most of us know milk is good for health, the nutrition. That knowledge we all have, jnana, that is knowledge. But if someone has actually taken milk for every day for long time and benefited by taking that milk every day, enjoys good health, then that person has experience. That is Vijnana, knowledge, experience. So both of these he is going to explain in this chapter. Idam guhyatamam jnanam vijnana sahitam, along with Vijnana. Jnana, knowledge, along with experience. Sahitam pravakshyami, I'm going to explain. Sri Krishna Bhagavan says to Arjuna, I'm going to explain to you this knowledge with experience, Vijnana. Why? Because he allows to give this knowledge to humanity through Arjuna. Pravakshyami, to whom? Anasuya way. Asuya means jealousy, small-mindedness, pity-mindedness, jealousy. Asuya means. Anasuya means a person who has no such defect in the mind. broad, large-hearted, free from jealousy and other defects of the mind. Such a person is only fit to receive this knowledge and benefit from this knowledge. Arjuna is one of them. Anasuyave, Pradakshyami, I am going to explain what is the benefit of this knowledge. That is also explained here. What is the good of knowing this? What he is going to explain? He says in the second line, Yat Jnatva, knowing which. Yat Jnatva, two words are combined there. By knowing which, by knowing this knowledge with experience, Ashubhat Moksha, say, Moksha means freedom. Ashubha means inauspicious, evil, something that is not good. From all evil, from all suffering, you will become free. Moksha, say, you will become free from all suffering. That means, if you truly understand what Bhagavan Sri Krishna is going to say in chapter 9, then that knowledge will free us from all suffering for all time to come. In the commentary, Shankara says, Ashubhat means samsara bandhanat. Samsara means the cycle of birth and death, transmigration, cycle of transmigration. Being born, going through life, childhood, youth, middle age, old age, sickness, death, and again being born. This cycle is happening. We become free from this cycle. Samsara bandhanat, moksha sale, become free from all evil, all suffering. That is the benefit of gaining this knowledge. So in this one verse, Bhagavan is explaining what is the quality of a person, qualities of a person who can benefit from this knowledge, and what is this knowledge, jnana vijnana, and what is the benefit of knowing this knowledge, freedom from cycle of transmigration. That means liberation or moksha. You will become one with the divine, end of all suffering for all time. That is verse number 1. Verse number 2 and 3 are also introductory in nature. So let us do verse number, shloka number 2. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitramidamuttamam Pratyakshaavagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartamavyayam. Rajavidya, the king of all knowledge. Rajaguhyam, the most mysterious knowledge available only to those who are prepared to receive this knowledge. Idam Uttamam Pavitram Vidya. This knowledge is Uttamam, the best of all branches of knowledge. Earlier we know there are two broad branches of all knowledge. If you take all the whole universe of knowledge and divide them into two categories, those categories are called what? Paravidya, Aparavidya. Aparavidya means knowledge of this world. Everything we study in educational institutions, schools and colleges, like astronomy, biology, chemistry, all those things until zoology, everything, social sciences, logic, mathematics, whatever you name, that we study. All of that is called collectively Aparavidya. As opposed to that, Paravidya is what we are concerned with here. Para means supreme knowledge. And the supreme knowledge is knowledge of the self or knowledge of God. That is the best of all, highest of all branches of knowledge. This is what Sri Ramakrishna taught to M in their second meeting. Sri Ramakrishna asks 4 questions of M. The third question was this one. No, the fourth question was this one. Sri Ramakrishna asked M, the writer of the gospel, do you believe in God with form or without form? Then M says, I believe in God without form. Then Sri Ramakrishna said that is okay. It hold on to that belief. Then he asks another question. What kind of person is your wife? Sri Ramakrishna asks M about M's wife. What kind of person is she? Is she a knowledgeable person, Jnani or what? M says, M had gone to college, university, he was teaching. He was studying English and philosophy and everything. So M said, I am afraid my wife is ignorant, a Jnani. Immediately Sri Ramakrishna scolded him, are you a Jnani? That you are calling your wife a Jnani? Then M was shocked. He didn't know the difference between Jnana and Ajnana, knowledge and ignorance. Then Sri Ramakrishna explains to him this. Jnana means knowledge of God, not knowledge of the world. All philosophy, chemistry, biology, whatever you study, it's all knowledge of the world, objects. That knowledge changes. As new discoveries come to light, our knowledge of the world also changes. And the object of knowledge also changes. That is not true knowledge. It is necessary, but not enough. Aparavidya is necessary for a good life. We have to study something. We can't be ignorant and illiterate. We have to study, but it is not enough. We have to study Paravidya, knowledge of God. We have to know what is God, what is our true nature, ourself. That is Paravidya. So here, that is what being explained. Rajavidya, Paravidya, Vidyanam, Raja. Among all the branches of knowledge, this Paravidya is the king of all branches of knowledge. Pavitram. Pavitram means that which purifies the self. The Aparavidya does not do that one very well. A person may be highly qualified in some branch of knowledge, like science, chemistry, or biology, or social science, or whatever, political science, or whatever, highly qualified, PhD, etc., but does not necessarily guarantee that person purity of mind. Many great scholars have done immoral things and ended up in jail. That knowledge did not help them to become pure. Their character remains the same unless they try to modify themselves. But this Paravidya is not like that. If you know Paravidya, you become absolutely pure consciousness. No trace of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, no trace of impurity left in one's mind. That is the benefit of knowing Paravidya. Absolute pureness is guaranteed. Pavitram means, but it purifies a person's whole personality. That person gives up all impurities and then realizes his divine nature. That is the benefit of this Vidya. Pavitram, idam uttamam. Uttamam is the best of all branches of knowledge. Then another thing Sri Krishna says about this knowledge, he's still praising this knowledge as introduction, explaining its importance and glory so that we become interested in knowing that one. Second line, verse number 2, Pratyakshaavagamam. Pratyaksha means direct, not indirect. Pratyakshaavagamam means this knowledge can be directly experienced. As we're experiencing pain and pleasure, good and bad now, in the same way we can experience our true nature. We can know God in the same way. Sri Ramakrishna said many times that you can talk to God as I'm talking to you. He said to devotees, you can talk to God as I'm talking to you. So direct, pratyaksha. There's no barrier between me and God. As I am talking to you, you can also talk to God, he said. He said from experience. Everything he said was from experience, not from reading books. Pratyakshaavagamam means this knowledge of the self can be acquired and experienced directly by everybody. Everybody has the potential. Everybody may not have the opportunity or readiness or preparation, but potential everyone has. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmam. Dharmyam, it is in total conformity with dharma. That is not true of all branches of knowledge. Some knowledge can be adharmic. Can you think of a branch of knowledge which is adharmic? I had a friend who was a very highly qualified physicist. And he had a job with a company who had defense contract, the government. And he was posted on a project which was developing a weapon system. Then he had a conflict. If he does work there assigned to him, he will be developing a weapon. Weapon is only used for destruction. Well, there is no other use of any weapon. Any weapon is only for destroying. So he had a moral conflict. Eventually, he left the job and got some other job. So that knowledge of developing a weapon system is knowledge. But that is sometimes can be seen as opposed to dharma because it only used for deployed in destroying people and property. So, but this knowledge of the self is totally in conformity with dharma. Dharmyam, no opposition to dharma. Dharmyam. Then, kartum susukham. This is something about which I have a little bit question. Sri Krishna says, kartum, to do, to acquire, susukham, very easy. Bhagavan Lord is saying, this knowledge of the self, Rajavidya, etc., is very easy to acquire. Susukham, very easy. But that is, from our experience, we know it is not so easy. It requires a long life of spiritual practice and practice of detachment and all those disciplines. Not so easy, but he praises this. It is all glorifying this knowledge so that we become interested in knowing this one. Susukham, it is exceedingly easy to achieve. This translation says, I don't think so. Maybe for some people, God realization can be so easy, but not for many people, most people. Susukham kartum avyayam. Avyayam means infinite, eternal, and unchanging. This knowledge is always true. It does not go out of fashion, does not become obsolete at any time. Knowledge of the self, knowledge of God, is always remains fresh and current, always remains true. The same thing is now true of other branches of knowledge. They change. Other branches of knowledge are all concerned with our understanding of this universe, different aspects of the world. That change, our knowledge changes. We know that new discoveries are coming to light, and then we have to discard our old understanding. In the earlier days, many centuries ago, people were thinking that the sun is revolving around the earth. Then more discovery found out that the earth is, sun is not revolving, earth is revolving around the sun. See, that old knowledge was replaced by new knowledge. Before some time, people were thinking earth is a flat, it is flat. Then it's not flat, it is round. So like this, that knowledge changes with time. This knowledge of the self, avyayam, never changes, always remain current, never becomes obsolete or old. That is this knowledge. Importance of this self, knowledge of the self is explained. Then we go to verse number 3. Ashraddhana purusha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani.
Swamiji, you are on mute.
Oh, okay. Those who have little faith in this dharma, in this knowledge, Rajavidya, return to the way of repeated birth and death, failing to reach me. So what happens if we don't study this knowledge and acquire this knowledge? Nothing happens, we'll continue our present existence. We'll be born again, this life will end one day. This life will end, old age will come, disease will come, body will go. Again, I will be born again. And then same things we go through, childhood, youth, all those things. As we saw in verse number 13, chapter 2, second chapter, verse number 13, Bhagavan Sri Krishna explains many transitions happen in our life. Kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi. Verse number 13 in chapter 2. What are the transitions we go through, all of us go through in this life? Those series of transition changes will happen in every life until you put a stop to it. So if we don't acquire this knowledge, then we will not get the benefit of realization. We will not get moksha, will not be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Will continue to come and go. That is the disadvantage, that is the problem. We have to acquire this knowledge with much effort. Although Bhagavan says, Susukham in the previous word, it does require a lot of effort. Practice, spiritual practice, devotional practice, everything has to be done. This we studied already in the 8th chapter, previous chapter. Chapter 8, verse number 15, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, if you reach me, the Lord is saying, if you reach me, if you reach God, then what happens? You will never come back to this world of suffering. Mamupechita kaunteya dukkhalayam asashvatam na apnuvanti. Mahatmana, great people who reach me, they will never come back to this world, which is dukkhalaya, house of misery. Dukkha means suffering, misery. Alaya means house. This world is described as a house of misery by whom? By the Lord himself, who made it, who created this world. He himself is saying there is no joy, there is no happiness in this world. Ashashvatam, everything is changing, temporary. Today things are there, tomorrow they are not there. So we will come back to this world if you don't acquire self-knowledge or pure devotion. That is also alternative. He's talking about knowledge here, but Sri Ramakrishna said, whatever benefit we get by acquiring self-knowledge, same thing can be reached by acquiring pure devotion. Narada's way of devotion. Sri Ramakrishna again and again said, for Kali Yuga, the path of knowledge is difficult. To say, I'm not the body, I'm a Brahman, we cannot really practice that one easily. Some people can do, but it's more difficult. But the path of devotion, bhakti, described by Narada, is easier to follow in the Kali Yuga. This is what Sri Ramakrishna said. So both will take us to the same goal, self-knowledge. So this is the path of knowledge. Mostly Krishna is talking about it in this present context. Ashraddha danaha purusha. Shraddha means faith. Faith means conviction based upon understanding. Not simply because it is printed in some book, or some people are saying we don't have to take everything printed in book or everything that people say. We have to study and make sure it is the truth. That conviction developed, backed by understanding, that is called Shraddha. Shankaracharya defines Shraddha in the Viveka Chudamani in this way. Shastrasya Guruvakyasya Satya Buddhi Avadharanam. Shastra means Shruti, that means Upanishads. Not all the Puranas and Smritis. They are codes of conduct and stories, they may change. The message is same, but the content may be different. Shastrasya Guruvakya. Guru means an illumined teacher. Not everybody who can speak about Vedanta can be a guru. But to be a guru, one has to have realized the self. Illumined guru. What such a person says, that is the real truth. That firm connection is called Shraddha. Ashraddhanaha means people don't have Shraddha in this knowledge. They'll dismiss it. What's the good of reading all this philosophy? What good is there? It's just philosophy. That is how they dismiss this knowledge. They have not understood the importance of this knowledge. A time will come and they will, But right now, for them, that time has not come. Everything happens in time. As we saw in the 7th chapter, out of thousands of people, only one person here, one person there even tries for liberation. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatate siddhaye. Out of thousands of people, Manushyanam sahasreshu, one person here, one person there tries for liberation. Most people are not interested. They are interested in they are not bad people, but they are interested in, their interests are only in the worldly things. How to be happy in this world, what to do to find happiness in job and family, money, wealth, and youth and beauty. These things are all what people do, pursue to find happiness. That is one category of people. Those who have real faith in this knowledge, this is the ultimate knowledge. This is what I have to acquire. That faith must be there. Otherwise, those who don't have that faith, Astradhana, Purusha, those people who don't have faith in this knowledge, Asya Dharmasya, of this knowledge, Mam Aprapya, not reaching me. Aprapya means not reaching, Mam means me. They don't reach God. Those who study only worldly, only Aparavidya, they are good people, honest, hardworking people, but they are not studying this Paravidya. They are very good in Aparavidya. But they will reach worldly goals. They will achieve, say, fame and success, wealth, everything they will get, but they won't get knowledge of God. Mam aprapya, without reaching me, mrityu samsara vartmani nivartante. They will come back. Nivartana means coming back to the same world. After dying, we come back to the same world, born again, and go through the same cycle of events again in the next life. Mrityu samsara vartmani, in this world which is full of suffering, like death, old age, etc., described in the earlier chapter 2, verse 13. Mrityu samsara vartmani. Samsara means this cycle of birth and death. Coming back to this cycle of birth and death. Those who don't reach this knowledge, don't have appreciation for this knowledge, those who don't strive to get this knowledge, nothing will happen, they will come back to this world, go through the same cycle again. This will happen until the time comes when they realize, no, this is not the way to find permanent happiness. They have to experience many lifetimes to come to that conclusion. Sri Ramakrishna said, those who come here, this is their last birth. That means those who have the conviction that the teachings of Vedanta confer us liberation, they will be liberated. They will follow the path and they will be liberated, they will achieve salvation, they will reach God, they will not be born again. But to come to that stage, it takes a long time. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. After many lifetimes, a jnani reaches me, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says in earlier chapter. So all these first 3 verses so far, they are only words of encouragement, glorifying the importance of this knowledge, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya, which is going to explain the nature of the ultimate reality. That is all. These 3 verses are all simply by way of encouragement, get us interested to know this knowledge. It's true also. Everything is true, what he has said. Now we go to verse number 4. 4, 5, and 6. These are a little bit difficult. Not really difficult, we can understand. I'll try to clarify as much as I can. 1 second. Okay. Verse number 4. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina matsthani sarva bhutani न चाहम तेषु अवस्थितः. Maya means by me. Who is speaking? The Lord. God is speaking. Bhagavan Shri Krishna is speaking. By me. Maya means by me. Idam sarvam jagat. This whole universe. Tatam. Tatam means is pervaded. This first statement. First statement is this whole universe is pervaded by me. That's what he's saying. That we have heard before. Whole universe is pervaded by God. God is present in everything. That has come before. There is no place or thing in which there is no God. Pure consciousness pervades everything. It is just like if you take a ring made of gold, gold pervades everything in the ring, every part of the ring. Every part of the ring has gold in it. There is no part of the ring where gold is not. That way, that is one sense. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagat, idam sarvam jagat, this whole universe is pervaded me. How? In what way? Maya avyakta murtina, in my unmanifest form. Avyakta means, as we have seen before, this has come before. Unmanifest means without name and form, not visible to the sense organs. Avyakta means not visible to sense organs. You cannot see, salt dissolved in a cup of water. That example comes in the Chandogya Upanishad. The Guru says to the student to teach him this Avyakta Murti, unmanifest, how God pervades the universe in unmanifest form. The teacher asked the student to bring a cup of water. What you are trying to understand? How the Lord pervades the whole universe in its unmanifest form. He is present in everything, everywhere. I can't see them. Unmanifest. To illustrate, this example is given in the Upanishad. So teacher says, bring a glass of water. The student brings a glass of water. The teacher says, bring a teaspoonful of salt. Student brings a teaspoonful of salt. Teacher says, put the salt into the water and stir it very well. So student does that one. And after some time, the teacher says, do you see the salt in the water? No, sir, I only see the water. I don't see any salt. But is salt there in the water? Student says, I think so. I put the salt into the water myself. It must be there. But you cannot see. No, I cannot see. How do you know it is there? Then the teacher says, take a small sip of water from the top of the glass and taste it. How does it taste? Student says, very salty. So salt is there, but you cannot see it is there. Then teacher says, take another sip of water from the middle of the glass. Student does it. Taste. How does it taste? Very salty, sir. So salt is in the middle also. Salt is at the top, salt is in the middle. The teacher says, take another sample from the bottom of the cup. Student does it, taste it. How does it taste? Salty. So salt is everywhere in the water, the top, middle, and bottom. But you cannot see the salt. The salt is present in the water, but everywhere in the water, but cannot be seen. Somewhat in that way. These are examples. No example is perfect. Similar, to some extent, it helps us to understand. First line in chapter 4. Maya avyakta murtina, by me in my unmanifest form. Murti means form. In my unmanifest form. Idam sarvam jagat tatam. This whole universe is pervaded. So far it is clear. So that is one part. Then the second line. Machthani sarvabhutani nachaham steshvavasthitaha. Machthani sarvabhutani. All the beings. In the commentary, Shankaracharya says, all beings with no exception. Brahmadi stamba paryantani, Shankara says. From Brahma, the creator, to the blade of grass, everything in between. All the planets and suns and stars and everything, people, animals, plants, things, good, bad, everything. All of the Sarva Bhutani, all the beings, Matsthani, they are present in me. They exist in me. How do they exist? They exist in me as their very self, central part of their being. As we are going to see in the next chapter, 10th chapter, the core of all personality, most important part of everything in this universe is the divine presence. If you take one human personality, one person like me or anybody, what is the most important part of this person? Not the body and the mind, because they are going to go away. You'll deteriorate even before going away. The most important part is the divine presence in me. That is how all beings are present in me, as me being their most important central part of their existence. Matsthani sarva bhutani. All beings exist in me, with me as their self. Without me, without the presence of God, the beings cannot exist. Without God's presence, nothing can exist. He is present, everything is present. He is absent, nothing is present. That is the meaning of this word, Matsthani sarva bhutani. All beings are present in me. Second statement. Third part of this sloka is the last quarter. Nachaham te svavasthitaha. I am not contained in them, in the beings. I'm not contained in them means I'm not limited by them. God is not limited by his presence in one thing and other things, because all these objects which we are seeing, experiencing, all these objects, including everything from all the planets and plants and animals and things and stars, everything, whatever you are experiencing, they are not absolutely real. Mithya, Jagat Mithya, we saw before. They appear to be true. They appear to be real. We can touch them, we transact with them, we can see them, hear them, touch them, deal with them, but they are absolutely not true. Like dreams in an object. In that sense, Nachaham te svavasthitaha. How can the absolute reality God be present in a virtual object? These are all virtual objects. Whatever you are seeing are virtual objects only, not absolutely real. So like we see an image in a mirror, the image appears to be very real in the reflection in the mirror, but it's not real. It is there because the original object is there, facing the mirror. Somewhat in that sense. Matsthani sarva bhutani. All beings dwell in me. Nachaham te svavasthitaha. I am not contained or limited by them, because those objects are not absolutely real. They are imagined or virtual objects. There can be no real relation between the real self Brahman, which is absolute pure consciousness, non-dual consciousness, and the virtual objects which we are seeing in the waking state. In the deep sleep state, we don't see any world or anything. Nothing is there. No object is there at all. So it is not absolutely real in all states of consciousness. So in that object, I am not contained, I am not limited by them. Nachaham te svavasthitaha. That is one part of this. One thing we have to keep in mind when we study these verses 4, 5, and 6, one thing is, which is taught again and again repeatedly by Sri Ramakrishna and other scriptures in Vedanta, namely, this world which we are experiencing is absolutely not real. It's only real in one state of consciousness. And what is reality we are talking about? That is, cannot be understood, grasped by mind and speech. The Lord, the God, the Brahman, absolute reality, pure consciousness which we are talking about, is described as not being able to be grasped by mind and speech. The phrase used in Vedanta scriptures, in the gospel also, is Avang manasa gocharam. Sri Ramakrishna uses this phrase in the Bengali version. In English, it is translated not visible to the sense organs or to the mind. Vak manasa agocharam. Manovacham agocharam. For mind cannot grasp it, sense organs cannot grasp it. It is absolutely real. It's not a physical object to be seen. It's not a separate object. It's our very self. Who can know the knower, the self? In that sense, it is not possible to be seen as if it is an object. It's not an object. It is our very self. It is not material in nature. It is pure spirit, pure consciousness. So it is beyond the domain of mind and speech. That is what the Upanishads say also. On the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a famous statement which says, Yatova, no, it says, Aprapya manasa saha, mind and speech went to figure out what Brahman is. They could not. Mind cannot understand what Brahman is, and speech cannot express what Brahman is. There's a nice story in the Kena Upanishad, but we don't have time to go to that now. That means the ultimate reality which we are talking about in this verse 4, 5, and 6, that is not something we can understand intellectually. When explained in words, this is what appears like that. It looks like a contradiction, but that's the best that words can do. Words cannot explain the nature of Brahman. Walk, speech cannot grasp it. Mind cannot also grasp it. How can speech grasp it then? So this mysterious nature is what is going to describe in the next verse also. Verse number 5. Nasamasthani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta brahmacha bhutastho mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. We'll study this in detail, this verse next time. He says, Me yogam aishwaram pashya. He says to Arjuna, look at my mysterious glory, Aishwara. I appear to be in everything, but I can't be seen in everything. There's nothing in which he is not present, but there is we cannot see him in anything. Like the salt dissolved in the water. That's a good example, but somewhat like that. So we'll continue this study of chapter verse number 5 and 6 next time, and the rest of the chapter becomes easy to understand. Now, if there are any questions, I have a information. Many people sent me a list of shlokas, verses dealing with equanimity. Equanimity means ability to remain calm and perturbed under all circumstances, pain or pleasure, blame or praise, happiness and unhappiness, whatever happens, one should remain calm, not affected by anything. That quality is very important. If you have the quality, you will always be calm and peaceful, no matter what happens. Nothing bothers us. That quality is explained throughout the Gita, Samatvam. So the verse numbers, many of you gave is all correct. I think I got 6 responses, giving the list of verses. All of them got most of the verses right, but many people omitted the 3 verses in the second chapter, 13, 14, 15. In chapter 13, Sri Krishna says, a wise person, verse 13 in chapter 2, 2:13. Second chapter, Shloka 13, Sri Krishna says, a wise person, Buddhiman, does not become perturbed when the transitions happen in a life, inevitable transitions. Sometimes you are happy. When a child becomes a youth is very happy. Oh, I'm strong now. I'm independent. Happiness. When a youth becomes middle age, then middle age becomes old age, only suffering. Old age, and then death comes even worse. A wise person goes through all these changes in life. Dehenosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara. Kaumaram means childhood, yavanam means youth, jara means old age. Tatha, in the same way, dehantara praptihi. Obtaining another body means giving up this body. So that is verse number 13, 14 also. Ability to bear heat and cold, pain and pleasure. Shivtoshna dukha, sukha dukha. That ability is important. And then the verse number 15 is also a same thing. Yam vinam vyatayanti te purusham purushashava. That person to whom these things do not bother, who remains unperturbed by these things, changes in life, happiness, unhappiness, etc. That person is truly a yogi, a devotee. He can reach God. That is chapter 2, verse 13, 14, 15. Some did, many didn't. It doesn't know. It's okay. Then 248, 238. That is a very important word. Almost everybody got that one. Sukha dukhe same kritva labha jaya jaya. Perform your duty and you will not incur sin. If you perform duty, remaining calm in sukha dukkha, happiness and unhappiness, labha alabha, profit and loss, gain and loss, jaya ajaya, in success and failure. If you keep yourself calm and do your duty, will be fine. The 238 everybody got. 248 it says siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Siddhi means success in what we do. Asiddhi means failure. Sometimes we fail, no matter how hard we work. That we studied before. Other factors come into play. Person should remain calm in success, failure. And then second chapter 56, 57, there Sri Krishna describes the qualities of a sage of steady wisdom, Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna means a person whose wisdom is very steady under all circumstances. That person remains calm in success, in failure, in praise and blame, in happiness and happiness. No matter what happens, that person remains unperturbed. Those qualities are important. Then 330 several slokas, chapter 4, verse 22. Ritsola vasantushtaha. A person should remain content with what comes. Samaschidda avasiddhavata, in success and failure, equanimity. And then that many people, almost everybody got 520, chapter 5, verse 20, very important verse for equanimity. Na prahrashyet priyam prapya, no dvijet prapya cha priyam. Priyam means pleasant. Priyam prapya na prahrashyet. If something pleasant happens, somebody praises or some good thing happen, we should not exult too much. It's okay. We take it calmly. Because next moment things may change, we don't know. Na prahrashyet priyam prapya, apriyam prapya na udvijet. When unpleasant things happen, apriyam prapya, na udvijet. One should not become too much perturbed, remaining calm. That is 520. And chapter 6, verse 7, chapter 6, verse 8, most people got. And that's very good. I think I got 6 replies and I replied to all of them individually. And just to go through the whole chapter, reviewing itself is a very profitable experience. So that should be done periodically, to go back and review the things that we have studied before. So that was a very interesting exercise. Anything else you want to add? If not, I shall say the closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy. May all be free from diseases and other problems. May there be harmony and no ill will amongst all beings. May no one be subject to any kind of suffering or misery. Om peace. May there be peace in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. May there be peace everywhere in nature. Adi Daivika Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Shri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu. All of you stay well. It's a great joy to participate in this study with you. Let us, by the grace of God, meet next week.
Thank you.